All right, new concerns rising about the rising tensions between China and Taiwan and China and the U.S. Elon Musk, during his exclusive interview with David Faber, saying he believes Beijing's hostility toward Taiwan needs to be taken more seriously.
The official policy of China is that Taiwan should be integrated. Mm-hmm. One does not need to read between the lines. One can simply read the lines.
Do you think?
So I think there's some inevitability to the situation.
That would not be good for Tesla, conceivably, or for any company in the world, frankly.
Yes, for any company in the world. I think almost no one realizes that the Chinese economy and the rest of the global economy are like conjoined twins. It would be like trying to separate conjoined twins. That's the severity of the situation, and it's actually worse for a lot of other companies than it is for Tesla. I mean, I'm not sure where you're going to get an iPhone, for example.
Here now to weigh in, Dewardric McNeal, senior policy analyst at Longview Global and a CNBC contributor. Dewardric, great to have you with us. Do you agree with Musk's take?
Thanks for having me, Melissa. Listen, there were a set of built-in assumptions about the outcome of Taiwan's future that I do not necessarily share. He is correct that it's China's policy and intent to integrate Taiwan into the People's Republic of China. Their capabilities, Melissa, are growing to do that. Their national level of confidence is growing about their ability to do that. But China's not the only actor here. There are other actors who have a say, the U.S., Taiwan specifically, partners and allies, but also, Melissa, global corporations have a say here. And I think it is time for people to speak more clearly, like Elon, about the potential outcomes and make it clear that they're uncomfortable and start to vote with your feet. And by that, I mean de-risk your supply chain, try and decrease your dependence on China, and make it clear that the heightened geopolitical tensions and specifically the threat to Taiwan is a concern. So I don't think that this is imminent, but I do think it is fair that companies should heed what he says. It is their intent, but that doesn't mean it's going to happen, and it certainly doesn't mean that it's going to happen in the near term.
It sounds like, though, you're saying to companies that they should pretend that it is going to happen, that in fact it is, and that you should pull out of China. If it is China's intent to integrate and it is the U.S.'s policy to recognize Taiwan, then it is an inevitability that there will be conflict there. I mean, would you agree with that?
Well, I want to make clear that U.S. policy is not to recognize Taiwan as an independent and sovereign state. So that is clear. With respect to China, it is indeed their policy to integrate Taiwan. And so, yes, I think companies should take China seriously. And by that, I mean, don't navel gaze and whistle past the graveyard here. There is a possibility that this would happen. It may not be an invasion, Melissa. We've talked on the show here about several different possibilities to bring Taiwan to heel. So it may not be an invasion. So I think businesses do need to start to take this serious, have a plan. And, if I'm a board of some of these companies with exposure or an investor, I'm going to start to really press for what this plan is to de-risk your supply chain. And so, I think if nothing else, the interview should really fire that shot over the bow that you should take this seriously. To my point, it's not imminent, but you should use this time between now and when a scenario may be one that China could execute to plan and get prepared for this. So I wouldn't sit back and wait. I would plan now.
What do you think of the precedent that was set by a lot of U.S. multinationals when Russia invaded Ukraine? Because you could see a very similar scenario. Let's say it was an invasion like you suggested, but maybe it's some sort of economic blockade or something like that. There'll be a lot of pressure on U.S. multinationals. And it's not just, the sales, but it's also the production, as you mentioned, the supply chain. Like our companies, to what Elon said, we're kind of co-joined right here. And it's not an easy fix to kind of, sever these ties, whether it be from a selling standpoint or a manufacturing standpoint.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. And he is as well about the conjoined nature of the global economy to China. But look, I think Ukraine gave us an example of all of the possibilities, both on the hard side as well as on the economic sanctions and export control side. And so I think if I'm going to start to plan for a potential outcome, I really take the Ukraine Russia example as my base case. But as you know, Dan, this is nothing compared to that. If China were to invade Taiwan, or there was to be some sort of an economic sanctions against China. So it's a complex scenario for sure. But businesses need to start now, because I don't think it's imminent. I think there are too many problems at home in China that they have to deal with in the near term, nor do I think that their capabilities are such that they are assured to win an invasion scenario. But to me, it means use this time to figure out how you untie this Gordian knot. That's my view of the situation.